Joining us now, Democrat candidate running for lieutenant governor is Justin Fairfax, our good friend. Justin ran for attorney general in 2013. We predicted he would upset Mark Herring. He lost by 1%. I was almost right with that. And Justin back at it now, running for lieutenant governor. Let me tell you how this works. Primary, June 13th, Democratic and Republican primary. 3 candidates on the Democratic side running for lieutenant governor. Justin Fairfax, Susan Platt, and Gene Rossi. It is not a majority, and there's no runoff. Whoever gets the highest percent wins, and they become the nominee. And anybody can vote in either primary on June 13th. All you have to do is ask for a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot. You don't have to declare ahead of time. You don't have to sign a form. You don't have to declare. You just say which ballot you want, and that does not restrict. I get these questions. That's why I go over it. That does not restrict who you vote for in the general. So if you vote for the Democrat in the primary, and you can do whatever you want in the general, there's no bind there. So I just want to clear that up for everybody joining us now, though. Justin Fairfax, good to have you with us, Justin.
Hey, John, great to be with you. God bless you. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, now, Justin, I'm going to ask you this, right? I look at the Christopher Newport University poll. You've been running for You've been running for lieutenant governor a long time. I think you're one of the toughest campaigners I've ever seen. You've raised a lot of money. Every place I go, you're there. I must have run into you 50 times in the past 18 months. You're everywhere. And then I look at the poll, and you're 9 points behind Susan Platt, who got in the race 7 weeks ago and has no name ID. How is this happening?
Yeah, John, well, here's the thing. I wouldn't worry too much about polls. We're 73 days out, and even by that poll, majority of folks, over 60%, aren't even really tuned in. But they are starting to tune in. And I got to tell you, John, what you said really reflects the reality on the ground. We are seeing such incredible energy behind our campaign in this race, in this enormous closeout. We, as you know, have had 4 straw polls already statewide in lieutenant governor's race. We have won all 4 straw polls by wide margins, including Congressman Gerry Connolly's straw poll on St. Patrick's Day, which had nearly 1,200 people voted in that straw poll. We won 78% of the vote on a 3-way ballot with 1,200 people voting. So that's a sample size actually is about 3 times the size of the poll that you cited, and that's real live primary voters. So, we feel great about where we are. And as you mentioned, we're seeing this incredible energy everywhere we go. We had our kickoff in Fairfax, Northern Virginia. We had over 300 people come out to that kickoff, and that was on a day when it snowed and was icy, and people still came out in enormous numbers. We had a kickoff down in Hampton Roads in Portsmouth. Again, had over 300 people come out to that. We have had a team on the ground statewide for months. And I got to tell you, John, I think you're going to be very pleasantly surprised by what you see on June the 13th, because that energy, that infrastructure that we are seeing around the Commonwealth of Virginia, I think is going to bode very well for us on Election Day.
Well, I predicted you were going to be the lieutenant governor nominee, Justin, so I don't want to have egg on my face here. I never get these races wrong.
And frankly, you saw it 4 years ago early, and at that time, I'm sure what you were hearing from a lot of folks was, this is, going to be a blowout, and Justin will lose by 30 points, because I know I heard that. And yet we won almost 49% of the vote in the Washington Post endorsement. So, don't be concerned. I promise you, we are very excited about where we are, and we're growing every single day. We just turned in over 16,000 signatures of Virginians. We were the first campaign to turn in our petitions, and folks are fired up, and they are behind our message around focusing on, as you mentioned, jobs and economic security and opportunity for all Virginians. And again, higher paying jobs. It's really what we focused in on. Getting folks into these jobs that pay, 3, 4, 5 times what minimum wage pays, and really allowing folks to change the economic circumstances for themselves and their families, allowing young people to more affordably go to college and finance an education, refinance their high-interest student loan debt through the state, and that message has resonated, and also criminal justice reform. This is something that we have championed from the start of this race, and people have responded so incredibly positively to that message. And we have done now, John, over 25,000 miles around the Commonwealth of Virginia. in the last 11 months. And so I promise you, you're going to see this excitement growing and building, and we're going to have a great, great result on June 13th.
Okay, Justin Fairfax running for lieutenant governor, Democratic side. So what you're telling me to do is breathe. Everything's going to be fine, right? Just breathe.
That is always great advice. And again, take in all of the factors. As I mentioned, again, 4 straw polls in the state. We won all 4. By margins, we won 62% one, 75% another, 78% another, 78% another. And those are on 3-way ballots. So, again, these are folks who are showing up, who are fired up, and they're coming to our side overwhelmingly. So we feel great. And frankly, I think this race, John, is so important because it really is about the future of the Commonwealth of Virginia and the future of our country. This is the first major national election in the country after 2016. And so people want a hopeful, positive message that's focused on them and their families, their economic security and opportunity, their economic mobility. You know that my wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, and I own a small business, a family dental practice that we bought a decade ago. We are folks who have benefited from, the greatness of this country and the American dream, educational opportunities. I got scholarships to go to school and student loans that were affordable, and we were able to buy, a family business. And so we kind of want that journey to be available to everyone. And so that really is the message that we've carried forward, and that's why people have been so positively on our side. We also have seen so much support in all communities. I'm the vice chair of Planned Parenthood Metropolitan Washington Action Fund. We've gotten a tremendous amount of support in the healthcare community, and we really are seeing that growth and excitement on the ground, John. And I got to tell you, you go and visit. You've been everywhere around the Commonwealth, and you've seen the reaction. And I promise you, it's going to be a great night on June 13th.
Here's the thing, Justin. One of your opponents, Susan Platt, basically she's running her campaign against Donald Trump. You're running your campaign for lieutenant governor of Virginia. We've already litigated Trump in that race November 8th. But look, that's her strategy. Every email I get from her basically says Trump sucks. That's her campaign strategy. It's got her to 20% with your base. Give me 2 or 3 policy differences, not style, policy, between yourself and Susan Platt.
Well, John, here's the thing. I don't know everybody's policy positions on everything. As you know, we have laid out our policy positions over the course of this campaign the last 10 or 11 months, and we have focused, again, on that message of fighting for economic security and opportunity, higher-paying jobs for folks, affordable college school access, refinancing student loan debt to lower market rates, more access to capital, start and grow a small business, and, again, criminal justice reform. And I'm someone who is both a former federal prosecutor and someone who grew up in a tough environment in the inner city. I have seen the effects of a broken criminal justice system and how we need to change that. And I've talked about that everywhere I go. So we've laid out our vision and, welcome other folks to lay theirs out as well. But I got to tell you, John, last year you talked about 2016. No one, in this race fought harder for Secretary Clinton and Tim Kaine than we did. I was a surrogate. I was asked to be a surrogate for the Clinton-Kaine campaign, and I proudly went out and made the case for the secretary. Of course, we all working together won Virginia, despite what happened nationally. And so
Thanks
we worked,
for reminding me.
tirelessly in 2016 on behalf of Secretary Clinton and Tim Kaine, and so I'm proud of that. And also I'm proud of the positive message and vision that we have put forward. Now, you mentioned, John, really quickly on President Trump and the Trump administration. We've made it very clear where we disagree and where we will resist. I went out to Dulles Airport on the first night of that unconstitutional, immoral travel ban. And I volunteered as a lawyer to represent folks who were there who needed assistance. And I'm proud to say that every single person who was unlawfully detained that night, pursuant to that order, got to go home and leave that airport. That was America responding. I was proud to be a part of it, the proudest day I've ever had as an attorney. And we'll continue to resist. We saw that 24 million people will retain their health care because we resisted under the Affordable Care Act. And now we need to expand Medicaid in Virginia. I heard your discussion with our great governor, Terry McAuliffe, and we need to expand Medicaid here in Virginia. So many other states around the country, and particularly our neighboring states, have done that, including, in the Carolinas now considering it, Maryland, West Virginia, Kentucky. Utah is now considering it.
Kansas.
And so, Kansas
Mississippi
voted overwhelmingly to expand Medicaid. There is no defensible argument not to do it. And so we have got to make that part of our priority legislatively going forward.
We want to be sure Mississippi goes ahead of us so we can be number 50. I think that's the strategy.
No, we don't want to
Mississippi does it.
Last, so,
when Mississippi does it, then that's going to be it for me. Look, when you're losing to Kansas, I just about had it with the whole thing. Let's get to some policy. Let's get to Dominion Power rate deal. 2015, negotiated by Frank Wagner. Now some people like Chap Petersen are saying, well, wait a minute, there's no clean power plan. That's gone. Right. President Trump squashed it. Some people saying, that deal should be reopened. Others saying, nah, I don't think so. Like, you could be running against Senator Jill Vogel. She's the front runner on the Republican side. She says, nah, deal's a deal. Rates are down. Move on to something else. What say you?
Yeah, on that point, I think Senator Chap Petersen makes a great point, and he's laid out the case because that deal, as you know, in 2015 was contingent on the Clean Power Plan going into effect and essentially Dominion needing to, in its view, protect itself from fluctuations that would result from them having to implement certain things under those regulations with the Clean Power Plan. Now that we know that power plan is likely DOA. I think that it is important that we revisit that, and I think Chap has made a compelling case, and I'm happy to hear other voices on this. But I'm proud to have Chap's endorsement in this race. He's an incredibly thoughtful, smart legislator and lawyer and a friend. Chap, along with Dick Saslaw, the majority leader of the Senate, and Mamie Locke, Senate Caucus Chair, have all endorsed this. 11 state senators have weighed into this race for lieutenant governor. 10 of those 11 have endorsed us. And so I think that reflects, their view that, we have a very thoughtful approach to public policy. We will, fight back and resist as necessary, but we're also going to move Virginia forward and talk about the future of the Commonwealth and how we get more folks to move up the economic ladder and get good, high-paying jobs. We've also got endorsed, as you know, by Congressman Gerry Connolly. Very proud to have Jerry's endorsement. He's done great work and is representing the interests of Northern Virginia.
Yeah, but Justin, you know what? We're in an environment. Justin, we're in an environment where these endorsements don't matter. I'm a friend of Dick Saslaw. He's the godfather. His endorsement. That brought you to It's him and his wife. They just don't matter. I want to get to your.
Listen.
I want to get, and maybe his wife. I don't even know. Let's get to policy now. So we talked about Dominion.
Yep.
You're talking about jobs. You just heard the governor on. He's a champion of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So am I. I never met a pipeline I didn't meet. We're talking about thousands of good-paying jobs coming to Virginia, craftsmen, tradesmen. Then after that, billions of dollars coming in for the energy. How do you stand on the pipeline?
Well, John, what I have said, and this is something that I'm still considering, is that I don't believe the case has been made necessarily for that pipeline. And I'm heard your discussion with the governor, and I'm sitting down with a number of different groups and interests to really hear their viewpoint on this. I'm not somebody who reflexively will say, you mentioned you haven't met a pipeline you don't like. I hear your view on that, but I think we've got to be sensitive to both job creation, which is critical and paramount, but also to environmental quality and standards. The Commonwealth of Virginia is an incredibly unique place where we have done a great job balancing job creation and growth and low unemployment with preservation of our beautiful natural environment, and it's one of our big assets as a state. So I'm someone who, again, I'm a public policy major and background. That's sort of where I come in. I like to do the analysis as opposed to sort of bumper stickers. And so what I'm doing right now is talking to a number of folks and considering their views. I think as of right now, I don't believe the case has been made in my view. I have requested additional information on exactly what the metrics are going to be and how you balance those pro and con and do the SWOT analysis to really get to a place where we make the right decision here. I understand that folks have very disparate views on this, but I'm open to hearing the case be made, on all sides and arriving at a final decision.
Decriminalizing marijuana, small amounts.
Yep. I think we need to do that. We have seen, you talk about looking at this from a policy prism, but also really from a practical standpoint. We have mass incarceration in this country. John. Let's just be very plain about this. We are locking people up for very, minor offenses, many of them nonviolent drug offenses, also people who are, in some cases, struggling with mental health challenges. And, our jails and prisons have become a repository for so many people who really are dealing with health issues, particularly in the opioid epidemic and the heroin crisis. But this stretches back, 20, 30 years to the crack epidemic. And I was, again, a prosecutor in the Major Crimes and Narcotics Unit. I know what it means to keep our community safe. But we have got to be smart on crime and not just tough on crime. And this is one of those instances where, locking folks up for small amounts of personal use marijuana really makes no sense and ultimately costs us more than we gain, both financially and morally, in my view. So I think decriminalization is the way to go.
Do you know that we have the United States of America has the highest incarceration rate by 35% amongst any other free democracy in the world? We have a higher percentage incarceration rate than the Russian Federation or China. We have the highest recidivism rate in the world. Something is the matter here. Something is very the matter.
And again, this is why we have prioritized from day one, by the way. These aren't just talking points. From day one, criminal justice reform. And I talk about it everywhere I go, no matter the audience, no matter the setting, because to me, this is both an economic issue, but it's a moral issue. We spend, we have a system here that's incredibly expensive. It is in many ways discriminatory. It also is ineffective. It's not even achieving the objectives that we've set out. We spend $3 billion a year on our justice system here in Virginia, $1.5 billion on incarceration, $27,000 a year to house an adult in our state prisons, $150,000 a year to house a juvenile in our state prisons. And I went to a juvenile detention facility here in Fairfax about a month ago to highlight this issue, to talk about reforms and ways that we can get people out of this broken criminal justice system while still keeping us safe. We have the lowest level of crime in this country that we've had in 50 years. And yet we are still seeing people cycle through a broken system that's not working. You mentioned recidivism. The 3-year recidivism rate for juveniles is somewhere north of 75%. And so we're spending $150,000 a year per juvenile.
It's an epidemic,
and yet,
man.
Within 3 years, 3/4 of them are coming back.
It's an epidemic. If you're Lieutenant Governor, are you going to fight to get rid of these private prisons that are on the stock exchange that make money for their stockholders by filling up the beds? Are you going to fight to get rid of that?
Yes. I believe we should not have private prisons.
Unbelievable.
And I know in Virginia we have one. But I don't believe we should have private prisons. There are some services outside of the prison that might be privatized to be more efficient, more humane, more effective in delivering services. But the prisons themselves, I don't believe we should have private prisons. This also, John, at the federal level, as you know, and not to relitigate the election, but the Obama administration has given guidance that the federal government was no longer going to use private prisons in its system. That was reversed under this administration, and I think it's the wrong decision. Because when you have, as you mentioned, for-profit companies who are incentivized then to fill the bed space or guaranteed a certain amount of money based upon the bed space that they fill, it's
sick. It's sick. It's sick.
Yes.
The executives make millions of dollars in bonuses and stock by increasing the rate of incarceration. This is this is the sickest thing I've ever seen.
It is
outrageous.
We are in 100% agreement. I completely agree.
Outrageous. Okay, I gotta go, but I gotta read. I just gotta read you this one text from Robert in Virginia Beach, Justin, and then I gotta go. Robert in Virginia Beach says, "Sure, China has a lower imprisonment rate than we do. China just executes them." It's Robert in Virginia Beach. All right, Justin, I gotta take off.